Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely chilling 65-year-old mystery. The kind that spawns absolutely wild conspiracy theories. We're heading into the massive, pitch-black, snow-covered Ural Mountains in the dead of winter. It's an incredibly terrifying, freezing environment, and we're going to unpack exactly what happened there. Our goal? To finally separate those sensational campfire stories from the cold, harsh, forensic reality. Let's get into it.
So, here's the setup. Back in early 1959, 9 young, super adventurous Russian survival experts headed deep into the freezing Siberian taiga. These guys were fully prepared, they knew exactly what they were doing, but they never made it back. Weeks later, search teams found their tent totally abandoned, and honestly, this is the craziest part, it was slashed open from the inside out. Now, to understand why 9 seasoned pros would seemingly doom themselves by running out into a negative 30-degree blizzard half naked, we really have to retrace those final, fateful steps.
Section 1. The Mountain of the Dead. The expedition begins.
Let's follow their journey to a remote peak that the indigenous Mansi population ominously called Dead Mountain. Looking at this timeline, it all started out so happily, right? 9 friends just trekking through the snowy forest. They set out on January 23rd. 5 days later, one of the hikers, Yudin, felt sick and actually turned back. And wow, talk about a decision that literally saved his life. On February 1st, the rest of the group set up their final camp on the exposed mountain slopes. And then, total silence. Nothing. It wasn't until almost a month later, on February 26th, that a search party made a terrifying discovery. But before we get to what they found, just consider the group leader, Igor Dyatlov, and his final journal entry. He literally wrote, "I wonder what awaits us on this hike. Will anything new happen?" It is just so incredibly heartbreaking to read that now, knowing the unimaginable horror that was about to unfold. Section 2. A grisly discovery. The search party.
Try to put yourself in the shoes of that search party. After 26 grueling days trekking through heavy snow, they finally spot a torn tent. But this crime scene, it completely defied every logical survival instinct out there. The tent was slashed open from the inside, all their heavy winter gear was just neatly left behind, and outside there were 9 pairs of footprints leading away into the pitch-dark woods. But here's the absolute kicker. The footprint evidence showed a calm, orderly walk. So whatever threat caused sheer, unadulterated panic inside that tent, it apparently didn't chase them down the mountain.
Section 3. The bizarre evidence. Down the slope.
Now, as investigators followed those footprints toward an old cedar tree, this mystery shifted from just strange to utterly gruesome. Look at this absolutely horrifying list of anomalies. They found the first 2 bodies wearing nothing but their underwear beside the remains of a tiny fire. Above them, the cedar tree had branches broken 5 meters up. 3 more bodies were frozen solid in crawling positions. Deeper down in a dark ravine, the last 4 bodies had massive internal trauma and missing soft tissue. Oh, and to top it all off, some of their clothing tested highly for radiation. Looking at this mountain of bizarre data, it is so easy to see how 65 years of wild conspiracy theories were born.
Section 4. Spooky red herrings, conspiracy theories.
Because the evidence was so deeply weird, people immediately started whispering about glowing UFO orbs, Yeti attacks, and secret KGB plots. And it definitely didn't help that the government officially closed the case with this incredibly vague statement. They literally called the cause of death an unknown compelling force, which the hikers were unable to overcome. I mean, come on. That acted as pure gasoline on the conspiracy theory fire.
But as focused learners, we've got to look past the supernatural stuff. Let's take the most sensational claim first, the missing tongue and eyes, which so many people blamed on a monster or a Yeti attack. Well, if you actually read the medical examiner's report, it clearly notes these bodies were buried under deep snow and exposed to melt water for months. So that spooky missing tongue, it's calmly and scientifically explained by natural soft tissue decomposition. No monsters required.
Right, but what about the terrifying radioactive clothing then? People swore up and down it was a secret Soviet nuclear weapons test. But again, the forensic reality is much, much simpler. Only 3 specific garments had higher radiation levels, and they belonged to 2 hikers, Kolovatov and Krivonchenko, who quite literally worked at Soviet nuclear production plants. The radiation was simply transferred from their day jobs. Simple as that.
So, stripping away all the sci-fi red herrings and looking strictly at the cold, hard facts, we're still left with this ultimate baffling question. If there were no monsters or government assassins out there in the dark, what terrifying force caused such sudden, extreme panic at midnight that they destroyed their own shelter? Section 5. The Smoke Theory. A tragic event.
To actually find the answer, we have to look back at the physical evidence left inside the tent. Group leader Dyatlov had actually built a really unique homemade internal stove. We know for a fact they used it that night because investigators found partially eaten fried ham. But crucially, the exhaust pipe was found disassembled and removed. On top of that, there were burn marks on a jacket, and forensic evidence showed some of the victims had blood in their mouths, which is a classic sign of severe smoke inhalation. This unvented stove points directly to a sudden, suffocating crisis.
Following this exact chain of events actually builds the most credible explanation we have. Step 1. In the pitch black, embers accidentally reignite inside that unvented stove. Step 2. Blinding, choking smoke fills that tiny tent in a matter of seconds. Step 3. In absolute panic, unable to find the exit or even breathe, they desperately slash the fabric with a knife just to get oxygen and escape. Step 4. Suddenly they're outside, freezing, highly disoriented, coughing. Once they can actually breathe, they calm down and logically walk toward the tree line for temporary shelter, just waiting for the smoke to clear out. But, once they were exposed to those negative 30-degree elements without their winter gear, the brutal Siberian mountain claimed them in 3 distinct, incredibly heartbreaking ways. 2 hikers froze to death beneath that cedar tree while trying desperately to keep a tiny fire alive. 4 others ventured deeper into the dark to find more wood, accidentally triggered a minor snowpack collapse, and fell 3 meters into a rocky ravine. That completely explains the massive car crash-like internal trauma. And the final 3, they froze to death right there on the slope, slowly crawling back toward the tent in a desperate, tragic attempt to survive. Section 6. A tragic end. The harsh reality. When we step back and view the evidence through this lens, the reality of Dyatlov Pass isn't a sci-fi thriller at all. For 65 years, the actual truth was obscured by spectacular, spooky tales. But by patiently analyzing the data, forensic science ultimately gives us a grounded, even if it's deeply devastating, resolution. And honestly, this is exactly what you should take away from this explainer today. The hikers didn't fall victim to some unseen monster. They fell victim to a simple, tragic stove accident and the unforgiving extremes of nature. The truth is so often found in the quiet, mundane forensic details, not in those loud, sensational campfire rumors. Which leaves us with one final provocative thought to consider today. How many other legendary mysteries in our history are just waiting for the smoke to clear,